Okay. We are live, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm just going to double check that everything is working correctly over on YouTube and X as we go live. I can see a few people in the room though already, so I think we are coming through loud and clear. Drop a thumbs up in the chat, guys, if everything is coming through correctly, so that we know you can either see us or hear us, and ideally both on X and YouTube. Okay, I can see we're working on YouTube as well. So we are joined today by Tom, co-founder and CEO at BitCast. Tom, it's been a few months since we got to connect and have a chat like this on YouTube and X. So pleasure to have you back. Obviously, you and I have been acquainted for a while now, and so it's been a pleasure for me to work with you guys and be mining on BitCast. But for anyone maybe who's a little bit newer, I'd love you to just take a few seconds to give us a brief introduction about Tom, and then obviously give us a quick overview about BitCast and everything that you guys have been up to as a subnet here on Bittensor TAO.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me on as well. Good to be back. So yeah, my name's Tom. I'm co-founder with Will. We started BitCast, which is subnet 93 on Bittensor, and essentially we incentivize content creation. So we sort of view the content creation industry as a little bit broken. It's run by vanity metrics, and we're setting up processes and tooling to essentially make it much more efficient for brands to interact with creators, and they pay for actual reach and engagement rather than fixed fees up front. So yeah, we're sort of changing the way that content creation is done.
Yeah, amazing. So I think a good way to maybe describe it is lowering that barrier to entry for brands to get access to creators who already have large audiences. Just to kind of summarize that problem, is it a matter of Bitcast wanting to, well, first of all, make that easier, obviously, but what is the main problem that you have found? And I know you've described this to me before, but maybe for anyone you watching as well, just that problem with brands having to do huge amounts of work to access individual creators, and then how Bitcast streamlines that entire process.
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about a brand, if they want to do content creation, which is now the most effective marketing there is in the world, it's returning the best return on investment. So PPC was dominant, and now it's moving into the hands of creators. So if a brand wants to work with creators, um, it's very, very time intensive. So they'll have to do outreach to their creators. They have to do rate negotiations, contracts. Then they have to go through exactly what content they want and do revisions. And then at the end of that, they end up with a screenshot of often a social creator's account. Um, and essentially like that because it's such a time intensive process, it means that brands typically are only able to do it with a few creators, and the bigger brands usually only use the very big creators because they don't want to spend loads of time using these smaller creators. They want to go straight to the big creators. However, that's not actually where the real maximum value lies in content creation. So smaller audiences have much higher engagement rates. It all comes down to trust. There's a lot more trust with smaller creators because you feel like you're part of the community. So the problem there that we are actually solving is that brands can now access hundreds of creators at once because we've automated that entire flow. There's no outreach, there's no contracts, there's no negotiations. It's all done by our system.
Mm-hmm.
And then the messaging that creators are talking about, it's all validated by AI. So really, if you've got a big brand, you've got a large budget, and you want loads of creators, you can get hundreds, if not thousands, of creators talking about your brand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's it's a massive time saving, but it's also returning a much better engagement rate than sort of the industry norms.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's a great summary. So You guys originally started off with helping to connect brands with creators on YouTube. And I think the biggest development over the past couple of weeks, Tom, and I'm just sharing my screen to illustrate this, is the introduction of X mining. So creators on BitCast are now able to mine and earn rewards in the form of the BitCast Subnet Alpha token by sharing content around specific briefs here on X. So maybe, yeah, could you give us some insights on that transition and the addition of X here over the past couple of weeks? And I know it's still early days, but yeah, just talking about the introduction of X as a new platform that creators can spread content on.
Yeah, so I mean, the sort of flow that I just discussed is it's channel agnostic. So no matter where the creators are, that process of reaching creators and working with them is very time intensive. So our thesis and what we're building is a tooling for many social medias. And we always knew we started with YouTube, and we always knew X was going to be next. We were scheduled to get it in early next year, but we've brought the roadmap in and we're delivering it quicker. Um, and there's two really well, they're very very different social platforms, and they come with completely different challenges. On X, there's we developed this with sort of three key principles, and it's that we wanted to come up with something that was corruption resistant. So you can't game the system. We wanted it to incentivize quality over quantity, because I think it's probably fair to say crypto Twitter is it's very noisy
Mhm.
due to poorly designed incentive structures. So we wanted to sort of prioritize quality over quantity, and then we also wanted to deliver highly targeted marketing. And this X rollout is just our first iteration. The first brief went live last week, so it's all very very new. Um, but essentially, what we've done is we've built a graph here that highlights the conversation within Bittensor over the last 30 days. So it's just showing you the accounts and how they interact with each other over the last 30 days. And the way that we've done it is we've used the Google PageRank algorithm, because if you think that's exactly what we're doing here, we're basically saying we're letting X accounts sort of tell us who they believe is influential within the space, rather than us trying to work it out ourselves. So that's exactly how PageRank works for Google. They let websites say which other websites they believe are trustworthy and authentic. So it's the perfect model for us to map out this ecosystem.
Yeah.
Um, but the real power in this tooling is that we can spin this graph up for any social niche on crypto on X. So the use cases of this are far and wide. If you want to go and look for SaaS companies that are doing certain softwares that you're interested in marketing into, you can run a social graph around that social niche. If you look at loads of the subnets on Bittensor, you've got like Celium, Ridges, that they're going to have social
Mhm.
niches that they want to go after. So this is our first iteration of doing it within the Bittensor space.
Mhm. Okay, so those 150 accounts you mentioned, those top 150 are eligible to mine for the briefs that Bitcast releases. Um, and the PageRank model essentially means that the people who have higher influence, i.e., that are towards the top of the list with a higher quote unquote influence score, means that if they're interacting, retweeting, sharing content from other creators, that helps those other creators either climb the ranks or have a better score for their respective page rank as well. That's how I understand it. Um, is that correct? And then how can other influencers, because you do have a list of almost 400 people here, including people who are not eligible. And I think some of the conversation over the past week or two has been, how can I get into the top 150 if I'm not already, and what do I need to do? Or and I know you guys have said kind of to get creative about the way to do it, but I think that's been a key question of people outside the top 150 for wanting to understand how they can climb the ranks and what they can do to become eligible. So maybe you could speak to that for a minute and clarify if anything I said is incorrect.
No. So your understanding is correct. So essentially, accounts that are mentioning your account, retweeting your account, or quote retweeting your account are essentially giving you the thumbs up. They're saying they're associating their account with yours, and generally people don't do that with accounts that they don't trust.
So
So
mentions, if someone mentions your account, that counts as like a bump for weighting a bigger score to your
yes,
account as well.
yeah. So mentions work as well. We don't look at replies, so we're not incentivizing loads of spammy replies everywhere. But
Yeah.
yeah, accounts that sort of speak to your account and sort of retweet your content is sort of a show of faith from them to say, I like this account, I
Mhm.
like this piece of content.
And
So
likes, do likes carry any weight?
no likes don't, no.
Okay.
And yeah, and then the 150 is I mean, and we've made this graph out of 400 accounts, like you said. That's not a hard cap. So we're going to keep spinning this graph up, and as the conversation increases around BitTensor, we're hoping this design will help incentivize that graph. This list is going to grow, and that 150 is going to grow. It's not a hard cap at always being 150.
Mhm.
But the way, obviously this is our first week of running it, and we set it at 150 because we believed it was a good point within the graph to just give it a hard stop and give people a target to aim for. Um, and how to aim for it is talk about BitTensor, talk about TAO, just have the word BitTensor or the tag $ TAO in a tweet and make great content and try and get that shared by the peers within the group. And it doesn't have to be people in the 150 who share it. It can be anyone in the 400.
Mhm.
So, and there's quite a like in the last week alone, we've seen some interesting strategies going on. Like someone's made a song that we thought was really good. But that can be a strategy. You can go and make videos about some of these subnets and companies on here, or you can just make really good BitTensor content and get the attention of people on this list, and you will climb the ranks.
Mhm. Amazing. So the other thing that you just kind of touched on briefly is that this list will recalibrate every 2 weeks, I believe, and maybe that's also subject to change in future. But the next recalibration date here is listed as November 23rd, and so we were chatting just before we came live, and you were alluding to the fact that when that next recalibration happens, there is a 30-day look back essentially, so that you were attributing new scores based on all the interactions, the activity happening on all these accounts from the previous 30 days. So could you speak to that a little bit, and if that will be something that is hard coded, like every 2 weeks it will refresh? Is there potential for that to be once per week in future? And what was the thought process with that kind of recalibration time period?
So the time period is absolutely going to we can change that. We're just testing this out at the
Mhm.
moment. So we set it as a 2 week change. Theoretically, we could recalibrate it at the start of every new brief, and then leave that recalibration for that specific brief. There's loads of different ways we could do it. We just thought having a 2 week recalibration would make it a bit easy for everyone to get an understanding of how this works. And we're obviously gathering feedback on what's working and what's not.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so the recalibration will change the list. Um, the you know some accounts will fall out of the 150, some accounts will climb into the 150, and it's based on the last 30 days. So for instance, if you had a tweet that got loads of engagement 30 days ago, this Sunday when we rerun it, if you've not done anything since, you'll drop out.
Mhm.
And it's a good gauge on who's active in the community at a certain time. Um, so yeah, it's a very fluid list, and essentially we're trying to ramp up the level of content and engagement over the recent time period. So we're not looking back over a year. If
Yeah.
you want to come and mine on Bitcast, put out some really good tweets for a couple of weeks, and you might find yourself in this top 150.
Yeah.
We think it's a good way of getting people engaged in the conversation.
Yeah. So you also alluded to the fact that this this process can be extrapolated out to other lists or other maybe niches. So does that mean you might have things like a Bitcoin influencer list in future or a Solana influencer list? Is that part of the value proposition, I guess, in order to get Bitcast as a business in front of other potential clients? And maybe TAO will remain the focus here in the short term, which I guess it will as you continue to refine it. But is that the goal? And then is there any kind of timeline that you're thinking about for that wider expansion, or focusing on TAO for the moment is the priority?
Yeah, I think right now, I mean, we've created some other graphs in the background, and we are testing it to see how it's performing. The BitTensor, getting this incentive mechanism right is our first priority.
Hmm.
There's no point us expanding out until we're 100. Been developing YouTube over the last few months is sort of testament to that
Hmm.
we prioritize getting the incentive mechanism right before we develop the no code miner to let loads of people join. And this is exactly the same approach we're going to take with this incentive mechanism. We're going to fine tune this, get it to a position where we're really happy with it, and then we'll be creating other graphs, like you said. And to be honest, what we're going to be doing is working within Bittensor. So the future use case of this could be companies like Microsoft wanting to go after certain niches. But right now, we're going to work within Bittensor because it always has been, and it always was meant to be our first,
Hmm.
our first sort of project. Like sort of what we were aiming to do is to promote Bittensor.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be spinning up graphs that make sense for BitTensor to be injected into the conversation there, or subnet specific.
Awesome. So what has the feedback been like on this first one or two briefs? I think video only went live in the past 12 to 24 hours, but Score was the first brief that went live last week for X mining. Can you share some insights on that initial feedback and anything that you've been seeing behind the scenes for the rollout of this first couple briefs?
Yeah, I mean, I think the rollout went really, really well. And the feedback that we've been getting is really, really positive. Obviously, there's been a lot of buzz around this list and the graph. We've released no code mining from day one. I think we're the most accessible subnet to mine on now within BitTensor. And we've pulled in what we've got 22 posts there, from the top 150.
Hmm.
And I think there's some metrics that I might have sent you earlier on
Yeah,
uh,
just
X.
bringing that up
So
here. Hmm.
yeah, so we've got, so yeah, over 100,000 views across accounts within BitTensor. So it's highly specific.
Hmm.
So not only are we promoting Score here, but we're promoting Score to the right audiences. And as sort of Laz points out here, that it's also spreading news out into the wider communities as well, because there's not 100,000 people within the BitTensor community.
Hmm.
So yeah, the feedback has been brilliant so far. There's been some really good conversations, and we've had a lot of questions. I think a couple of them we've covered off about the 150 and why we set it at the 150. That is subject to change,
Yeah. Hmm.
and
So that
people
could
can.
be in 2 months or 3 months. That could be 250, for example, or larger, if you guys deem it to be beneficial for people who are ultimately paying for briefs. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know We don't know yet until we run our next graph. Like, how much is the graph going to grow? Have we incentivized? I mean, from the messages I've been getting from some really big accounts from outside of the Bittensor ecosystem as well, they're
Mhm.
saying, "How do we get on this graph?" And I'm like, "Well, this is how you do it." And this is exactly it. We want to bring more eyeballs into Bittensor. So I think the graph being at 400 now, I think this is going to grow over time. And as that grows, the miner pool should grow.
Mhm.
I think we'll sort of always keep it sort of just above the middle point. But we've not coded anything in that like that in yet because we're still learning.
Yeah.
We've ran tests on this on popular conversation topics over the last couple of months.
Mhm.
But as soon as you add incentives, the game completely changes.
Mhm.
So it'd be arrogant of us to say we've got it right first time,
Yeah.
but we're going to learn and we're going to optimize it to get it really really good. But I think so far what we've delivered has been received really well. Um, there's
Yeah.
been go on, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, I was saying to Jared on the other stream last week that, there was things that you guys continued to iterate on with the YouTube mining as well. Like, it was great when it launched, but there was things that had to be tweaked and improved upon. And I think it's at a place now where it's super tight and you guys know the types of results that you can get for clients. And I also agree. I think the rollout here, that everything did go very smoothly for X mining, but there's always going to be those little improvements that you're going to need to make based on that initial feedback, because you cannot know exactly how things are going to pan out until you do the first couple of briefs. And so, yeah, for me that makes total sense. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of good conversations as well because part of the design of this, like I said, we wanted it to make it sort of corruption resistant, and we've had a lot of questions about, okay, well, why is it only the top 150? Because we need to limit it somewhere whilst we learn, and the most influential accounts are a good place to start.
Hmm.
And that was all done by code, and it will be recalibrated.
Yeah.
So we also had a lot of conversations around, shilling. But
Hmm.
the way the way that we've designed it, I mean, if you scroll down and show the briefs, they're open talking points, and they're built for authenticity. So here you can see talk about how Score's all-purpose AI vision will be used by Red FC and
Hmm.
include the tag Score. We've not at any point said it has to say certain things. It needs to talk about that, but it can be positive, it can be a balanced argument, it can be the pros and cons. It's just, you know, I think that's been a slight misunderstanding that it's actually it's not like that at all. It's open conversation, it's
Hmm.
good content, and get creative. As we've always said on YouTube as well, like creativity is what it's all about, and it's what we
Hmm.
really enjoy.
Yeah. So my understanding here on these performance metrics, 22 eligible posts essentially is what have been received. And I guess this brings up a point about that 150, because I noticed there's a few accounts in here, maybe like the Open Tensor Foundation or the Yuma Group. They might necessarily not want or have a desire to be mining on Bitcast, just as an example. And there's probably a certain cohort of these accounts in the top 150 that, yes, obviously they have a lot of weight when it comes to the conversation happening around Tau, but may not necessarily want or need to be mining or taking advantage of the fact that they're in this 150 top influencers. So I'm sure that's something you guys have noticed as well, but that's also probably why you're thinking about the graph and the expansion and the iteration. Yeah.
Well, actually, yeah. If you think about it, the accounts that aren't mining are probably the strongest judges
Hmm.
because their tweets and their sort of engagement across crypto, across Twitter, they're not playing for incentives. So people have said, "Oh, what happens if it gets siloed and people stop letting new creators in?" The accounts that aren't mining will stop that from happening
Hmm.
because all they want is good content. So if you see a company on here or a subnet or an account that you want to sort of engage with, and you could make great content from them, they might share it,
Hmm.
and then you can climb the list. So they're in a way the best judges of the list really. Um, And we've seen people saying, well, if someone's not mining, can they come out of the list and someone move in? It's like, well, no, that's essentially they're a really strong anchor inside that list for dictating who's in and out.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a fair point. They're kind of like the guardians of the list. You know, they don't have maybe that same incentive to need to mine, but they're kind of there to help ensure that there's a level of quality control to a certain extent, like
Yeah.
you alluded to. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, so I know that you said this is the first few experiments with briefs. Is there different ways that you are thinking about types of briefs on X? Like I know this one is quite open ended, like you said. Like talk about scores, all purpose vision, how it will be used with Redding and that announcement last week, and then to tag score. Have you thought about other types of briefs, or does X even allow for a wider scope of briefs that could be launched? Is there anything that we can expect in future along those lines?
So the brief that started today is a quote retweet brief, and that's with video. So that's another one that another type. Um, so for score, it was talk about the topic. For this one, it's quote the tweet and talk about their video compression. Again, very open ended. It's really open for creativity and loads of different angles because really what brands want is they want varied content. And that's exactly what creators want to do as well. They want to put their own spin on things. And this is why we're sort of leaving them so open-ended because we think it's a brilliant way of creating great content and getting the conversation moving. All we're doing with these briefs is guiding the conversation in the right direction.
Hmm. And when it comes to the scoring, I forgot to ask this a moment ago, but we look at some of the top tweets from that original score brief. Um, are these ranked like top to bottom by the weight that they've essentially achieved from the interactions? And then I'm also assuming that the tweets that garner the most engagement, as deemed by your scoring mechanism, will get the largest share of the reward for or the budget for that specific brief. And then I'm guessing it's done on kind of a percentage basis downstream from that. The tweet with the second and third most engagement get allocated budget accordingly. Is that accurate as well?
Yeah, that is right. Yeah, so those tweets are listed in sort of engagement scores. We'll be publishing the results, so you'll be able to see on this screen the results of each tweet and how much the rewards were. And what's going to be really interesting and like obvious when you look at the results is like just because a tweet's got, let's say a tweet's got 1,000 reshares on it, and then one tweet has got 10, the one with 10 still could win because it's all about who you get reshared by.
Hmm.
And we have to design it like this because we all know that you can buy likes and retweets and stuff on Twitter really really easily, and we've got to build it in a way that's bot resistant.
Hmm.
So yeah, so these are in order, and the scores that we allocate are based on the engagement that the tweet got from on the graph. So how many accounts engage with your tweet, and then the rewards, like you said, are a split of the budget across the scores that are output by our IM. Yeah.
Hmm. Awesome. Um, how does this tie into the larger vision for, let's say, offering attention and engagement to your clients? Is there a world where you see uh, packages where clients can get access to YouTube and X briefs in a combination of both? Because I guess up until now you've been doing YouTube with the YouTube creators, and now you're introducing X. At least from what I've seen, there's no overlap, or at least not yet. But is it possible in future that you'll have quote unquote, package deals where clients are paying for access across both YouTube and X with certain briefs, and how might that work?
Possibly. The way the way that the pricing works, it works quite differently between YouTube and X from a pricing point of view of our subnet. So
Hmm.
on YouTube, we've recently introduced a budget system like this, but it works in a different way. So a brand would upload their maximum budget that they're happy to spend, and then creators can make videos and draw down from that budget based on the amount of engagement that they can generate on YouTube. But that's a bit different to this. This is more of like a share of the budget. I don't know if that makes sense, but on X, we don't really know what budgets work best for this yet. So we're going to be experimenting with different budgets, but
Mm-hmm.
brands can upload whatever their budget they want to this.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, if we get a really big long list of like 1,000 accounts and the mining competition is really, really strong in there, a brand might come along and say, well, I want to put 5 grand and really get loads of visibility.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're going to be playing around with finding out what the right levels are, but they're going to be up to the subnets as well and the other brands of what they want to price these at.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're going to be working this out. But I think really the long-term vision of BitCast is to build an advertisers portal, which we've already started on, which feels very much like if you're running ads on Google or Meta.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is that you can go in and self-serve and you can pick, right, I want to run briefs on YouTube. Okay, I want to run briefs on X, depending on what your objectives are.
Mm-hmm.
And you can pick filters and you can pick sort of niches that you want to go after. So at some point, I think packages are probably going to be irrelevant. It's going to be like, no, this is what I want to do this time, this is what I want to do next time, and they can just get more and more used to the system and then funnel more and more budget into that type of advertising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you guys did launch a new website recently as well. So just kind of sharing that. Obviously, there's kind of the creator portal and then the brand portal. And I think what you're referencing just now is that brands are going to be able to more easily essentially submit requests for briefs and then allocate or specify how much budget they want to be able to allocate towards a given brief. So yeah, obviously, if anyone's listening, any brands or creators, definitely check out the new BitCast website. So yeah, maybe just changing up from the X stuff specifically, Tom. One of the other big updates in the TAO ecosystem over the past few weeks has been the TAO Flow upgrade. And I know you're not the more technical founder. I know Will is obviously in the weeds on all of the technical side of things, but I did notice that BitCast seems to be in and around the top 20, I think, yesterday when I checked, in terms of positive net flows over the past 30 days. With that upgrade on the network, do you, as a subnet owner, see net inflows as something that is your responsibility to kind of manage or take proactive action on? Or do you just kind of feel that you want to let the market do its thing and that the product and BitCast will kind of speak for itself? How are you guys thinking about that? Or if there's any kind of proactive things you're doing on that front?
Funnily enough, it's not changed our approach,
Mm-hmm.
because our approach was always to build a profitable business,
Yeah.
and not rely on emissions. So our X incentive mechanism, the way that we've done the budgets, is completely whatever comes in for the brand is what's going out to the creators. So we're going to be net, if not net positive, straight away in X. Our YouTube offering, so we've got three different features on YouTube, and 2 of them are already going to be net positive for BitCast as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in the sort of the way I was talking before, like about a budget and the creators draw down from budget. So really, I think the way that subnets are looking at the TAO flow is that really you want more revenue in than you're paying out to miners.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially like our that was always our approach, that we wanted to get solutions in that position, because once we've got our solutions in that position, we really are ready to scale. And then if a brand wants to come and spend $100,000 on a YouTube campaign for like a couple of months, that's not going to be a drain on our emissions.
Mm-hmm.
That's purely from what they've spent plus our our protocol revenue as well on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we've designed the system to be basically to negate minor emissions, and as such, I think we're going to do really well with the TAO flow mechanism.
Mhm. Awesome. Yeah, it seems to be working nicely for BitCast right now. I know it's not been as kind to some other subnets, but I think over the medium term it will kind of have a nice balance for the ecosystem in general. You mentioned YouTube again. Bringing it back to YouTube for a moment. You guys have been experimenting with different types of briefs on YouTube. Dedicated briefs versus ad reads. What can you share in terms of outlook there on the YouTube side? Are you focusing more on? It seems that there's been a more recent focus on the dedicated briefs, but I know that the ad reads were pretty successful and that you were looking for getting more clients in that area. What can you share with updates on that side and anything new coming on the video YouTube side of things?
Yeah, so we had to do a lot of like the dedicated stuff is been going really well. But like I said, the ad reads, and we've also launched integrations recently, which is talk about a specific topic within the middle of a YouTube video. And these are products that are really, really attractive to probably the biggest advertisers within crypto. So I'm talking like exchanges and like ecosystems.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've got all the tooling all done. It's all built. And we're just ramping up now to onboard some really exciting clients. So we've got quite very exciting clients in the pipeline coming up. And we're just about to sort of start announcing those. So you will start seeing more and more ad reads and integrations coming through now. But we're going to continue with our dedicated briefs as well, because we think they're brilliant for the Bittensor ecosystem. In making really deep dives, and it's really good content to understand things as well.
Okay, you're not giving us any spoilers there, but it sounds exciting. So yeah, I mean on the biz dev side of things, like, are you finding that it's been pretty organic so far with regards to clients that are engaging for briefs? Obviously, your own networks being a very good source of those initial leads for other subnets and other subnet owners. You probably have some good connections that have led to a lot of those briefs being able to come in. But are you also proactively approaching other businesses either in TAO and or outside of TAO? Sounds like you have been, but I'm just curious to know, like, how aggressive do you guys feel you want or need to be at this stage in the BitCast journey to tap into those other types of clients?
So the thing is, I think it's all to do with performance, isn't it? So if we're proving that we outperform any other marketing for content creation out there, it's going to be really easy for us to get a massive amount of attention from big brands. So we've not wasted loads of time doing loads of outreach, but we have done some very successfully. We've only got one case study of our ad reads solution, and we've since optimized it. But having been through some really exciting conversations with some very big brands recently, it's probably fair to say that they've been extremely excited about using BitCast, especially when we start adding a lot more creators to our creator pool. And I think once we've run a few more case studies with these clients, I think we're going to have a very, very, very compelling pack that we can send out to many different agencies and exchanges, and we can really start ramping up our BD efforts. But yeah, we're just going to get it right, fine tune it. We've still got a couple of little changes that we want to make it even more powerful. But I think, I mean, we compared our stats from YouTube, our YouTube case study for TAO stats against sort of the engagement that you'd get from using really big creators, and our metrics were already outstripping their spend by a matter of 3.
Yeah.
So once we've got that pack up and running, we should be really good to start hammering down on the BD.
Yeah, I think having those compelling numbers makes a lot of sense, especially when you're talking with people who have budgets or limited budgets, and they want to make sure they're getting the attention and getting the most bang for their buck. So yeah, that sounds great. Zooming out, Tom, if we're looking over the next few months, I think last time we spoke, the two biggest updates that you guys were working on were the no code mining and rolling out X, both of which have come to fruition, which is fantastic. If you project forward to, let's say, the end of Q1 2026, what do you see as the biggest one or two things that BitCast will be dedicated to / working towards over the next few months?
Yeah, so it's going to be the advertisers portal. So getting that really easy to use, really easy to understand, and it's basically self-service. So that really will help us scale. So that one's already in progress. So we want to get that out early next year, if not by the end of this year, but probably going to be early next year. And also, we've started work on our TikTok incentive mechanism as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the three social medias that we initially outlined as our first three to go for. And again, it's going to be totally different incentive mechanism, but if not, it's probably less difficult. That's probably not the right wording, but
Mm-hmm.
for YouTube, you need a really big audience that you've been building over years. For X, you need to be part of the conversation for the last 30 days. But for TikTok, the game changes again. So creators can make videos, make great videos, and not have a
Mm-hmm.
following at all and do really well on TikTok. That's how the algorithm works. So again, it's going to be the lowest barrier to entry anywhere on Bittensor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, so it's going to be TikTok and the brand portal that we're now turning our
Mm-hmm.
attention to, but we also got to keep our eye on making sure our YouTube sales are going in the right direction and obviously optimizing X.
Yeah. With the brand portal, is it the goal to get that to a point where it's almost so seamless that when the brand enters their requirements, their budget, that yes, there will need to be some approval process, maybe from you guys, but once they're able to allocate that information, the time from brief submission to go live is very, very short. Is that like, are you optimizing for that efficiency, or what are what's the goal, I guess, with that?
Yeah, the goal is actually flexibility.
Hmm.
So we want to make it extremely easy and not like really seamless for them to do really effective campaigns. The timing side of things, obviously, we don't want a load of admin time on the brand at all.
Hmm.
So we want to make that really, really seamless. But the time from when they publish their brief to getting content out is totally up to them. But theoretically, especially with X, theoretically you could literally launch one on the day. You are right to say that there will be sort of vetting processes and stuff going on that we'll be keeping an eye on. We don't fully have that figured out, but once a brand is sort of been approved, and there's sort of processes in place for sort of vetting things, it's going to be it could potentially be very very fast to get content out,
Hmm.
which I don't think is possible with a traditional agency. And it's also going to be in any language as well, so you can get worldwide coverage in any language, potentially within an hour's worth of admin.
Yeah.
So
Fantastic. Um, awesome. Really appreciate you coming on, Tom, once again. Anything else that you want to share that we haven't covered already, just to kind of close things out or wrap things up?
um, I don't think so. I think we've covered off a lot of the stuff. I think I think maybe just to sort of drum down on it, like this X rollout is sort of showing the conversation, and it's prompting conversation. And I think over the last week, it's actually prompted probably an improvement of content across X in general.
Hmm.
Um, and I think what's going to be really exciting for the whole BitTensor ecosystem is when we start pushing BitTensor in the same way into other conversations. And yeah, I think what we're doing on X and YouTube, promoting BitTensor as our core thesis initially, is going to bring loads of new people into the ecosystem. And I think we need to be breaking out of our echo chamber. There's a lot of the same capital flowing around between the
Hmm.
subnets. And I think what we're aiming to do is going to really benefit the whole of BitTensor. And we're
Yeah,
really excited to do it.
absolutely. Yeah. New eyeballs, new attention, new capital. lots of exciting stuff. So follow BitCast on X, guys. Make sure to check out everything Tom, Will, and the whole team are doing. They're working super hard behind the scenes, and from being in contact with Tom, I can attest to that. So yeah, Tom, once again, thank you very much for coming on to have a conversation. Really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll definitely have to get you back in a few weeks again for another update.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Okay. See you later.
Cheers.